Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard. As always, my name is Cory, and this is your holiday shopping gift guide for buying your loved ones or yourself some board games this holiday season 2021. Alright, and like I said, this is the 2021 shopping holiday gift guide for buying board games for the board gamer in your life, whether that be for somebody else or for yourself. The way I did the list this year is I broke it into 7 different types of games, so 7 different genres or kind of subdomains, and 3 games for each type. The different types are, I've got them listed here. I've got card games, cooperative games, family games, strategy, abstract, 2-player, and stocking stuffer games. So let's get right into the first list here. So the first type of game I am discussing today are card games, and starting with the first game on my card game list is with Furnace. Furnace, a brand new game to this year, has gotten a lot of buzz, but haven't seen a lot of people play it yet because it is just that new. If you can get your hands on it for the holiday season, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Furnace plays fairly quickly in about 30 to 60 minutes for 2 to 4 players, ages 12 and up. In Furnace, you are building out a tableau of cards in front of you to try to build this engine of cards that work well with each other. So it's a very nice engine builder with combos on the cards, and the way you are accessing these cards is very cool. You have a buy row that is out in the middle of the table, and each player bids on which cards they want. The player who bids the highest for the card gets the card in front of them to use toward their engine in the future strategy of the game. If you are the lower bidder, whatever amount you bid for the card that you lost with is the amount of resources multiplied that you get. So if I bid, let's say 4 on a card and you bid 3 on the card, I would get the card for the future rounds, but because you bid 3, whatever resource was shown on that card, you would get that amount of resources times 3 into your pool of resources. And those help you generate a system of combos on each cards as you go through the second part of each round, which is actually having your cards fire off and combo with one another to try to get victory points to win. So Furnace has been a ton of fun. Nice, really in-depth strategy, but nice and light and quick gameplay. Like I said, plays in about 30 to 60 minutes. In a 2 to 3 player game, you can easily, once you know the game, you can easily get it done within a half an hour. So that is always a good thing. Moving into the next card game-ish type of game is Runestones. Just got this game to the table a few times recently and just have fell in love with it from the moment we got it to the table. In Runestones, it does have a board and looks essentially like a big board game in essence, but really it is a card game at heart. In Runestones, you are acquiring cards to build out your deck. So it's got a deck building element to it, but the twist in this game is you're trying to gather crystals to forge gems and then ultimately turn in those gems for victory points and runestones. The unique card play element in this game is when you are using a card's ability, you have to play 2 cards down to the table in front of you. You get both abilities on both cards, but each card has a ranking system to it. The higher ranked card gets discarded out of the game for the rest of the game, and you don't have access to it ever again. So you have to be very careful on what 2 cards you're playing down with one another, knowing that the highest rank will get discarded out of the game. So that is a really cool element. Also, when you are gathering these crystals to formulate these gems, ultimately turning them in for victory points, that's all well and good, but that'll also get you these highly regarded runestones that have these game-breaking powers associated with them. So if you can get those gems out, turn them in for the runestone, you get the runestone in front of your player board for the rest of the game that has a very strong ability that you can do and your opponents can't do. So that is really cool as well. So you're racing to 65 points. Whoever gets to 65 points first triggers the end of the game. Everybody else gets one more turn, and then you tally up endgame scoring to see who has the most points to be the ultimate victor. But just the card play in this game is just so smooth, silky smooth. It's awesome with the different variations to the card play. Haven't seen it done before, and also these game-breaking powers that you can get with runestones make you feel very powerful and make you feel like you're getting more and more powerful as the game continues on until finally you get to the end. So both of these games are highly regarded by me. The third game I chose for the card game segment is Dice Throne. This game I actually don't own, but one of my brothers owns the game, and I've played it a couple times now, and I've had a lot of fun with Dice Throne. Dice Throne, like in the name, it says dice. You wouldn't think it would be a card game, but really at heart, it is for kind of that Magic the Gathering style player that you know in your life. Dice Throne, you have a specific asymmetric character that you are playing the game with, and like in Magic the Gathering, you each start with an amount of life points that you are trying to get your opponent down to 0 to win. But the way these different abilities are played out and rolling the dice to try to trigger these different card effects are just so much fun, and each player power feels completely different with one another, so your strategy will change from game to game depending on the character you choose, and it's just a lot of combo fun that you get with the Magic the Gathering or other CCGs that does it in another unique way where each player just feels completely different, and it's just a lot of fun. Like I said, played it a couple times, don't own it, but it's definitely a game that I would not shy away from anytime somebody would suggest to play it with me. So that is Dice Throne. Okay, and moving into the next category of games, it is cooperative games. So like I ended the last list with Dice Throne that I don't own, I actually don't own this first game on the list of cooperative games, and this game is World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King, a pandemic system game. So like in the name states, it's definitely got the World of Warcraft theme on it, but it is a pandemic system game. So if you've played Pandemic before, you'll be very familiar with the system. But what I like that Wrath of the Lich King does that is different than any other pandemic system game is that you are going after these quests and trying to complete quests to ultimately unlock being able to fight the final boss in the game. So you've got quests and you've got a final boss. You also have these minions that are flooding the board all over the place that you're trying to take care of. It's got some dice rolling in it that is like the Fall of Rome version of Pandemic, but it's really cool. You're rolling out these swords, you're rolling out shields to try to protect yourself from the minions, and each sword attacks the minions to try to get them off the board. If there are too many minions on one spot on the board, they spread out, and it just gets to be really crazy and chaotic, but I just really like the theming in this game. I'm not a huge World of Warcraft fan, like the computer game. Have never played it, I don't think, but I still really do like the way the theme is integrated in this pandemic system, where you feel like the character you choose is very asymmetric. You feel powerful with what you're doing. The abilities are fun to use, and you are throwing some dice, having a good time, trying to get rid of these minions on the board to ultimately go to these different locations to complete the quests that you are going after. If you complete the 3 quests, or the 3 main quests, then the final boss comes out, which is the Lich King, and you have to try to take him down to ultimately win the game. So it has been a lot of fun every time we played it. Definitely has that cooperative feel nature to it that I really like. Doesn't provide a whole lot of quarterbacking in the game because there are just so many different paths to victory that you can kind of choose your own path, and the other players at the table can choose their own paths to try to help the team collectively. So that has been a lot of fun. The next cooperative game that I'd recommend, I've talked about it a lot here on the channel, and this game is Horrified. It's got the Universal Monsters theme to it. Very cool. It's a lot of fun, obviously, during Halloween, but if it's not Halloween, it's just as much fun. You are choosing these different monsters to try to defeat collectively as a group. You are going around trying to get these different items, bring them to different locations. It's got a lot of pick up and deliver style to it. But the theme is just really cool. Each monster that you're trying to defeat has a different win condition to it that is asymmetric from the other monsters. So every game you can kind of mix and match and randomly choose the monsters that you are trying to fight, and every game will feel different. You can ramp up the difficulty. If you've mastered the game at trying to defeat 1 or 2 monsters, you can ramp it up to 3 or 4, and it makes the game really difficult at that point. So I just really like the varying levels of difficulty that Horrified brings to the table, along with the theme and the way everything is integrated, and it just feels like you are running around town with your friends trying to defeat these monsters. Just very thematic. It's very thematic, You also have villagers that you're trying to rescue to get these other powerful cards to your hand that are these one-time use cards. So the villagers are kind of a pick up and deliver system, the same as with the items trying to defeat the monsters. But like I said, every game just feels completely different because of the different ways you can defeat the monsters. So that is Horrified. And the last game on the cooperative list, you're going to have to kind of take with a grain of salt because this game is extremely heavy and complicated. This game is Spirit Island. It is definitely for the most gamery of gamers that you know, but it's very rewarding for those hardcore gamers. So in Spirit Island, you are taking on the role of a different spirit who's trying to fend off the invaders from coming onto the island. So there's these colonists that are coming to the island with their ships, and they're trying to build towns and cities and basically just populate the island. And the spirits are trying to scare them away so the natives of the land can just live in peace on the island. A very, very complex game, like I had said. Each spirit has a different role or a different persona, variable player powers and variable boards and that sort of thing, but it is just really cool the way the powers work in this game. The powers are depicted on these different cards that are in your starting hand and also cards that you acquire throughout the game. There are some cards that have slow powers and some cards that have fast powers. The fast powers act before the invaders do their thing on the land. The slow powers have to wait until the invaders blight the land and that sort of thing before they work. And it's just a really unique, really cool puzzle the way this game works, where you're just literally trying to play the cards with limited amounts of actions to maximize the amount of fear you can bring to these invaders to scare them off the island. So just a lot going on in this game. Like I said, the rules are very complex, the gameplay is very complex, but for the hardcore gamer in your family that you're looking to get a gift who likes cooperative games, definitely check out Spirit Island. This game plays extremely great at 1 player. It plays very, very well at 2 player. As you get to 3 players and 4 player, it starts to get a little bit on the long side, but I would say anywhere from 1 to 3 players, this game really shines and is just awesome. So that is Spirit Island. Okay, and now we are getting into kind of the lighter weight, family weight games. Not very, very light, but kind of straddling the line between lightweight to middleweight games for the family. And the first game on my list for family games is Stone Age. Definitely a classic here in my household. I've owned this game for many, many, many years, and Stone Age just never gets old. Stone Age is just your classic worker placement style game, but has a lot of fun things going on with it. In Stone Age, you are sending workers out to different locations to gather resources to fulfill different goals. You're trying to fulfill these goals on different cards. You're trying to fulfill goals by building out your own huts and your own little a village, essentially. And it's really cool in this game because you are trying to really maximize the actions that you're doing on these different worker placement spots by sending workers to a location to roll that many dice to gather resources. So the amount of dice you can roll is dependent on how many workers you send to a location, and it really has a cool effect in this game because the more difficult a resource is to gather, it really shines through in the amount of value you need out of your dice to get those resources. So for example, if you're trying to get wood versus gold, it's a big difference. You roll dice, you add them all together, and you divide by 3, and the result you get out of that is for wood. But if you're trying to gather gold, it's a lot more difficult, so you're actually dividing your total value by 6, and that's how much gold you get. And there's brick and stone, and those have different divisible amounts as well. So it's just really cool how you have to decide how many people to send to different locations. It's a fun kind of push your luck in certain scenarios type of game, but also know when to send the amount of workers necessary. So that's what I like the most about Stone Age. Getting into the next family weight game here, a huge hit within my game group and also with my wife, and this game is Parks. Parks is just a gorgeous game to look at. I've really turned a lot of my friends and a lot of my friends' families onto this game. Very simple, nice family weight. That's what this whole genre is about, where you're just sending this hiker along a trail, and where the hiker stops are the resources you're gathering, and you're trying to turn those resources in to visit different parks, different national parks. And each national park requires a specific amount of resources of each type to fulfill, and when you fulfill the amount of resources necessary and turn those in to then visit that specific park, that'll give you victory points. And, you know, in most games, like, whoever has the most victory points wins the game, but it's done in a nice, simple, satisfying, relaxing way. I think the funnest part about parks is knowing which resources your opponents are really looking to go after and which resources you need, because the spot that you stop on, that blocks it from your opponent being able to go there. So it's kind of a cat and mouse game between trying to block your opponent but also getting the necessary resources that you need to visit the parks that you are going after. So really fun, really light. It plays in about 40 to 70 minutes, it says on the box, for 1 to 5 players. So really, in a 2 to 3 player game, you can knock this game out in about 45 minutes, maybe an hour or a little over an hour for the 4 or 5 player count. It's nice that it plays up to 5 player too. There aren't a ton of games out there that play up to 5 player without an expansion needed. And this game, just out of the base box, it plays 1 to 5. So it's fun, nice, relaxing, great artwork, a good strategic but not too heavy strategy-wise family weight game. So that is Parks. And the last one in the family weight genre for me is called Stop Thief. Stop Thief is really cool. It's by Restoration Games. So it's an older game that Restoration Games took, restructured the way the rules work, restructured the strategy behind it, also built an app that you get on your phone to help run the game, and really brought this game back to life. An older design, but the changes that they've made and really updating the artwork, you know, and the integration with the app and that sort of thing has just really brought this game to life. And in Stop Thief, you can either work cooperatively or against one another. I think it plays best cooperatively, but it's a family weight kind of deduction style game. For the gamer that likes the Clue style of game, but is looking for something a little bit different and a little bit more strategic and brought up to today's standards versus just playing the generic Clue game, then Stop Thief is definitely what they would be looking for. You have an app that makes sounds when the thief moves, and depending on what sound the app makes, that'll kind of tell you where the thief is on the board. So you've got this huge map of a town here. You might hear the sound of passing cars, so the thieves might be moving their way down the street, or broken glass that moving through a window, or you might hear a door creak. They're moving between doors, and it's just really cool trying to find where the thief is so you can stop them based on the name Stop Thief. So it's really cool. The app does a great job. It's a very, very fun cooperative game trying to deduce where the thief could be. It's not very simple at all. I mean, a sound of a car could mean they're anywhere down any of the streets, and there's a bunch of them, or a creaky door. You know, without getting a clue, you might not know exactly which shop they're in or which store they're in. And, you know, creaky floors means they're on a wooden floor, or like I said, broken glass means they might be moving through a window. So it's really cool trying to figure out where the thief is and then stopping them before your time runs out and they get away. So a lot of fun for the family, a lot of fun for gamers as well, and I highly recommend it. Okay, and now getting into the strategy genre of games, these next games are heavier strategy, and really for those gamers in your family or the people you're looking to buy a game for. The first one on my list here is Great Western Trail. This is the second edition of Great Western Trail, so it should be pretty easy to find out there, and is just my favorite game of all time, so I had to recommend it. And if you have not tried this game, or you know the person you're buying the gift for has not tried this game, and they are more of a gamer type of person who is looking for a heavier strategy game, then Great Western Trail is definitely where it's at. Highly, highly recommend it. Great Western Trail, you are sending your cowboys down the Great Western Trail, and depending on where you decide to stop on the trail, that'll give you a different action. The gist of it is you've got 3 different major paths to victory. You've got a cowboy route. You've got another route where you're trying to build up your builders to build unique buildings just to you on the board itself. And the third route is building up your train conductor strategy to move your train further along the track. All 3 strategies are viable. The first one, the cowboy strategy, is you're getting these better and better, more valuable cows, because when you get to the end of the trail and sell those cows, the more value they have, it means the more money they're worth, and also the further city you can sell them to, which ultimately gets you more points at the end of the game. So getting better cows is a great strategy. The builder's strategy is you can build better and better houses along the trail, or better like pit stops, that when other players land on your building, they don't get a very good action at all. They can just use a very basic action that does not do very much good for them at all. But when you land on your own buildings, you get a very powerful action that is just unique to you. So that's another cool strategy. The third and final one, getting that train along the track further, allows you to sell those cows to the farther cities for cheaper. And that's really a nice strategy too, because there are these train stations that you can stop your train off at as well, and take one of your either builders or cowboys or train conductors and place it on the board in that train station, and they become that station master at that train station. And that gets you a tile that is just specific to you for end game scoring. So it really ramps up your end game scoring that way, and also gets you some other victory points that you score at the end of the game too. So all 3 strategies are viable. All 3 strategies are very, very cool to do. Feels very powerful, feels very unique. It's cool being able to choose which strategy you're going to focus on and see how it plays out. So that game is Great Western Trail. The next strategy game on the list here is Lost Ruins of Arnak, a brand new game, 1 to 4 players, plays in about 30 minutes a player. So it could be, a little bit on the long side, maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the player count. But Lost Ruins of Arnak is for that player that's really been searching for kind of an Indiana Jones feel strategy game, where you're going out and exploring these temples and fighting off these guardians and monsters that are guarding the temples. And all in the meanwhile, you're doing some really cool deck building too. Some of the cards play out in really cool ways that I haven't seen done in any other game, where some of the times you'll buy a card and it actually, its effect takes place immediately when you purchase it, and then it gets added to your deck, whereas you can choose to buy some other cards that just get added into your deck to make your overall hand better as you draw more cards in the future. So there are a couple different types of cards that do different things that add to the strategy in this game. Other than that, when you're exploring temples out on the board, that opens up different worker placement spots for both you and your opponents. So once you clear that guardian out of the way and the temple is open up for that action, you have opened it up for you and all the other players to get different worker placement actions. So you're exploring with your explorer out to these different things to get resources. You're spending them on the research track over here to go up on the research track. The higher you get on there, the more benefits and bonuses you get, the more points you can get. Buying certain cards gives you points, and you're just trying to maximize that strategy of how to best build your deck and play your cards to then send your explorer out on the map to do different worker placement actions. So it combines worker placement with kind of deck building and card playing in a very unique, very cool way. Also, the cards you play have different travel icons on it that sends your explorer to different locations on the map depending on what the card allows you to do. So that's really cool too. So that is the Lost Ruins of Arnak. And the last game I'm recommending on the strategy list for this list here is called In the Hall of the Mountain King. I've just had loads of fun with this game, and another really unique one to this list. I tried to make all these games feel a little bit different, so even if you were to purchase a couple of these games for that special someone, they at least feel different enough to where you're not kind of buying the same game with a different theme wrapped around it. All of these games feel completely different. In the Hall of the Mountain King, it's got a really cool thing where it's got a cascading resource management type deal where you are hiring these trolls to give you different resources, and you place them in a pyramid shape in front of you, and whenever you acquire a new troll and trigger that for its resources, all the other trolls beneath it that the cards are touching also give you resources. So it's got this cascading effect where it cascades down and it makes a combo full of resources to get you different things. There are also these really powerful cards that have different game-breaking abilities that you can utilize when you gather gems, and you are trying to tunnel your way through the mountain to uncover these statues and these pedestals, and trying to get your statues to particular colors of pedestals to match the color of the statue with the color of pedestal to get you end game victory points that way. And you're also tunneling through to different regions through the mountain to gather you different resources as well. So it's a really tight, really unique and cool resource management game mixed with trying to uncover these different pedestals and statues to really get them where they need to be, and also get closer to the center of the mountain, because the further you dig into the mountain, the harder and harder it becomes, but the closer you get to the center of the mountain, it really starts ramping up those victory points, and you just get boatloads of more victory points the further in you dig. So it's got that cool kind of Dig Dug style feel to it, where you're really exploring and digging out tunnels, and it really feels kind of claustrophobic and like you're really uncovering things and discovering things through the mountain as you dig, mixed with this unique cascading card resource management mechanism. So In the Hall of the Mountain King is great for all those reasons. Okay, and now moving into the abstract genre. So we'll move those aside here. First abstract game on my list is one that I've recommended for years now, and that is Azul. Azul, I've kind of beaten it to death with my explanation on how this game is played, and I'm sure by now you've all seen it. Azul is present in Target and other big box stores such as Barnes & Noble and that sort of thing, but it is really a great abstract game where you're collecting tiles from the center of the board to place it on your own player board, and you're trying to match these different patterns to get victory points. But the unique thing in Azul, and what makes it really tough, is when you're grabbing tiles out of the center of the board, you can only grab all of one color tile. And the other tiles you could not pick up get pushed off of that market tile and into the center of the board that other players can then collect for themselves. So the cool thing about Azul is that you kind of need everything. You need every different pattern, every different color tile, but you can only take all of one color or all of one pattern tile at a time, leaving the rest of them for your opponents to collect. So you're looking at the different player boards of what different patterns they're trying to match up, and along with your board, and depending on what you choose, will leave an open opportunity for your opponents. But they're doing that for you as well. So it's just a really tough game of managing these different patterns, a very cool puzzle to solve each and every time. Azul is a lot of fun. Moving into the next abstract game here on the list is called Reef. Reef, I don't hear this game talked about a lot anymore, but this game is sure a special game. It's really cool. Depending on what card you decide to buy to your hand, will then in the future tell you what different components you can place on your main board. Each player gets a player board, and also the cards tell you on the top of the card which resources you gather for playing it, but then at the bottom of the card, if you fulfill that mission at that exact time, you get points for that as well. So sometimes you're playing cards just for their resources, but other times you can really combo to where you're getting the resources, but then also you fulfill that mission on the bottom of the card to get points immediately and right away. And the different missions are basically just getting different patterns of these reef, the coral reef on your board in different ways. It's a three-dimensional puzzle, so you're stacking the coral really high, you're stacking it out, you've got different levels, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 levels high of reef, and depending on how tall they are and how widespread they are, and really giving you that 3D sense of a puzzle, that all depends on what different missions you can fulfill for a certain number of victory points. And obviously the harder missions to do give you more victory points, and you can really combo into fulfilling multiple missions at a time in this game, and that's what's fun about this one. So definitely give Reef a try. Like I said, I don't hear it talked about a lot anymore, but definitely a great game that should not be overlooked. Another abstract style game that is often overlooked, and I guess this is kind of a cheat. It's not completely abstract, but it's more for that poker player in your life, and that is Cursed Court. Cursed Court, like I said, it plays out kind of like I don't know, craps or Russian roulette, or kind of that poker with the betting chips style of game. In Cursed Court, there is one card that is dealt out face down between each of the players, and in the beginning of the game, you can look at the card to your left secretively and the card to your right and peek at it, so you know what those two people are in the Cursed Court, but you don't know what the other cards are between the other players. Depending on the different locations on the board that they are bidding on, that might kind of tip you off and clue you in to what other members of the court are in play. Because depending on which members of the court are in play will tell you which either diagonals or L shapes or orthogonally, horizontal or vertical, which ones of those score. If a member of the court is not in play, that configuration won't score at all. Only the members of the court that are in play by the end of the game will score you points. So you know some hidden information, you know partial information, and other players know partial information, and there is no perfect information in this game, and that's what makes Cursed Court the most fun, because you are trying to read the players, read what they know, and they're trying to read what you know, and you're trying to bid these poker chips on different locations depending on what you think they know and what you definitely know. And it's really a mind game, kind of a mind twist of a game, trying to play your opponents just like you'd find in like bluffing in poker. And Cursed Court is just a ton of fun. 2 to 6 players, so it plays up to a large player count and only plays in about 30 to 45 minutes. So you can have a ton of fun in about a half an hour, and plays 2 to 6 players, so a large player count, and just a ton of fun trying to read your opponents and trying to outbluff your opponents as well. So that is Cursed Court. Okay, and the last abstract game on the list for today is also another game that I've talked about quite often, and that is Santorini. Santorini is pretty much a 2-player only game, but is just a lot of fun to play. It's kind of one of those games for the person in your life who really likes chess, but this is kind of chess done in a twist, and not as heavy or in-depth as chess, but really fun in different ways. So you've got these 2 different gods that you're moving around the map. You can move them one spot orthogonally. Wherever they land, you can build a tower piece on either side of that god. The whole point of the game is you're trying to get one of your gods up to the top of one of the towers. The towers are 3 levels high, so you have to build them up as you go, kind of building out a staircase for your gods to have them hop one piece at a time to the top. And if you can get one of them to the top of the 3rd level of a tower, you win. But what's really crazy is that your opponents can run over and see what you're doing, and if you are building your tower up to that 3rd level and you start working your way up, your opponent can jump over and build a 4th level to the tower, which is that blue rooftop at the very top, capping off the tower. And if they cap off the tower from you, you can no longer jump to the top for the victory. So you're building out these buildings in Santorini, trying to cap off the rooftop of different towers that your opponents are trying to hop on top of. And the other thing I haven't mentioned yet is that each player gets an asymmetric player power that breaks the game completely. It allows you to do something crazy, and your opponent has an ability that allows them to do something crazy to manipulate and twist the rules to the game. So really cool jumping around the board and building these out, and just a lot of fun every time I've played it. So that's Santorini. Oh, and I forgot to mention, yes, it's an abstract game, but this is the first game in the lineup of 2-player games. I forgot to mention that. So moving on to the next one, this is the next game in the 2-player category. And I have had a blast playing it every time. And this game is God Tier. In God Tier, you've got this faction of gods. You can play with 1 faction, 2, up to 3, or maybe even 4 factions, depending on how long of a game you want or how complicated you want it to get. But we usually play with just a couple factions to make it nice and light and simple. But God Tier is really cool. It has a very cool scoring mechanism where it's kind of like a ladder scoring mechanism. Whoever wins the first round of play by trying to capture the flag will get 1 point. Whoever wins the second round gets 2 points. Whoever wins the third round gets 3 points. But then when you get to round 4 and 5, it goes back down to 2 points and down to 1 point for the last round. And you're trying to be the first player to get up to 5 points to win the game. So some rounds you don't necessarily want to win for the points. You might want to set yourself up and position your factions in different ways to set you up for the next round to score the rounds that are worth more amounts of points. That might be a viable strategy. The gods in this game are really cool. The powers are really neat. It's kind of a miniature skirmish game, but it comes with, pre-molded miniatures that look really nice. You don't have to put any of them together. You don't necessarily have to paint any of them. They look great as is. You're really trying to move around the map and take down your opponents by attacking them and block them and use your special abilities to do different things and trying to capture the flag, but then trying to plant your own flags and protect them, because whoever has the most overall points at the end of the round gets that round point that I was talking about, either 1, 2, or 3, or in round 4 it's 2, round 5 it's 1. So you're trying to score the most amount of points by planting your flags and protecting your flags for that round, but ultimately if you win the round with the most points, you're getting just the total score of points for that round. So it's not like you're getting the amount of points that you actually scored in the round. You're just trying to fight on that ladder of points to get that point or 2 or 3 to try to get to 5 points to win. So God Tier is really cool. Like I said, if you just buy maybe 1 or 2 factions and play against a friend, it's a lot of fun. Each faction feels very unique. All the different colors of factions specialize in different things. So God Tier is an awesome 2-player game. Okay, and now moving into the final 2-player game. Final 2-player game on the list for the holiday shopping guide is Skulk Hollow. Wow, is Skulk Hollow fantastic. Skulk Hollow, like I said, it's a 2-player game, and it is very asymmetric in the entire nature of the game. One player is taking on the role of this big behemoth giant, and the other player takes on the role of the fox and heroes, and whoever can take down the other first wins. The fox and heroes are these little tiny cute little fox that are running around and trying to jump onto the giant to take down their arms and their legs and different body parts, and trying to really weaken it down to eventually kill the monster or the big giant. All in the meanwhile, the giant is trying to fulfill their personal goal. Each giant, there's a bunch of them in the box, has their own goal that they're going after, that if they can fulfill their overall mission before the foxen can kill it, then they win. So it's really fun. It's really fun being the fox heroes. It's really fun being the giant. So I've had a blast playing this every single time. Also, John from Talking Cardboard owns a copy. Ryan from Talking Cardboard, he owns a copy as well. So we have 3 copies within our game group, and we're really looking forward to getting maybe some tournament play with Skulk Hollow played sometime soon. And if that sounds cool to you, definitely pick it up. On the box here, it says it plays in 40 minutes, so another quick one that brings a lot of strategic depth for what it is and plays in a short period of time. So Skulk Hollow is awesome. Okay, and the last category on my list for today are stocking stuffer games. So these games are really small games that pack a large punch that you can fit in a stocking of the person you're buying for the holidays. So the first game I decided for the stocking stuffer genre is Gone Shon Clever. It's a roll and write game. Nice and simple, but provides a lot of strategy, just like all the games I really enjoy. I like ones that are decently simple to learn and play, but that provide a punch of strategy. Gone Shon Clever is a roll and write game. You're rolling out dice, and based on the numbers that are rolled, you are filling out your sheet of paper in various ways. Each section of the sheet of paper has a different goal that you're going after, depending on what color dice are rolled and what value of pips are rolled on the different dice. And depending on what is rolled out, you're trying to fill out your sheet of paper the best you can to score the most points by the end of the game. It's a 1 to 4 player game, plays in about 30 minutes. I've pretty much exclusively only played it with my wife, and we have fun every single time we've played it. It's a really brain-burnery puzzle that's got simple mechanisms surrounding it. So a nice light roll and write that provides a strong punch, and this is definitely my favorite roll and write ever. We've tried multiple roll and writes, and nothing compares to Gone Shon Clever. or that's pretty clever in English. Nothing compares to it yet for us. So this is definitely the best roll and write we've ever played. Moving into the second to last game on the list, another stocking stuffer. Small little card game called Fantasy Realms. This game is really cool too. You are trying to build out the best hand of cards you can by the end of the game. So you start with a hand of cards, but then you're also discarding cards to redraw them to build out the best combo hand you can to score the most points at the end of the game. It says here it only plays in about 20 minutes for 3 to 5 players, but there is a 2-player variant in the box. I've played it just as much 2-player as I have with the other player counts, and it's just as fun. But Fantasy Realms is really cool where the cards are just crazy combo-y. The person in your life really loves to build out combos of cards to try to maximize their points, then Fantasy Realms would be for them. You've got different goals on each card, like some cards require a blizzard or a flood, or some cards require the queen or the king to be in your hand by the end of the game. Are these different, just all these different goals on the cards that you're going after, and as cards are being turned over off the deck, and or as players discard cards from their hand to draw a different card to their hand, you'll see a tableau of face-up cards in the center of the table of all these different cards you can choose from to add to your hand. But every time you add a card to your hand, you have to discard a card from your hand. So it's really, you're building out the best hand possible from drawing and discarding, whereas by the end of the game, you're left with the same number of cards in your hand, but most of them or all of them are completely different and hopefully combo and work off of one another in the best way to score you the most points. So Fantasy Realms is just a great, fantastic joy to play. A lot of fun, and one of those more complicated scoring games and high scoring games, but it's just so satisfying to find the exact card you need to build out your hand better than any other card could do it for your current state of your hand. It's just so fun to see that happen and for it to all come together. So that is Fantasy Realms. And before I lose my voice completely here, finally the last game on the list, but definitely not the least. The last stocking stuffer on the list is the Crew Mission Deep Sea, specifically the Crew Mission Deep Sea. This is the newest crew game to the lineup. The first one was a space themed. This one is obviously diving down into the sea. It's 3 to 5 players, plays in about 20 minutes. That's what's so great about these stocking stuffers. They play in about 20 to 30 minutes and just pack such a strategic punch. This one is cooperative card game, and it is trick-taking. So trick-taking cooperative. So this game is for that person in your life who really, really enjoys trick-taking, but with a twist where normally trick-taking games are all about teams and trying to win against your other opponent's teams and that sort of thing. But in this one, it is completely cooperative. At the beginning of each mission of the crew, you are given these different goal cards that you and the other players need to fulfill by the end of the round or by the end of the hand. You're trying to win tricks or trying to purposely lose tricks because each goal is completely variable and different. Sometimes one player needs to win all the tricks. Sometimes you can't win any of the tricks. Even if you win one trick, you completely lose the mission and have to either start over or try a different mission. Sometimes you can't win one of any specific color, or you can't win any of the 5s or 4s, or, every mission is completely different. Every card you draw is completely random, and out of the mission cards that you end up with, that is your unique mission for that round. So, kind of hard to describe and explain. It's a lot easier to play and a lot easier to understand after reading the rule book. But if you or somebody you know loves trick-taking games and have never tried the crew or never tried a trick-taking cooperative game before, then this one is definitely one to try. I'm not much of a trick-taking player myself, but when it comes to cooperative trick-taking, I really enjoy the heck out of this one. So definitely give it a try. It's an awesome, awesome game. Like I said, I prefer the Mission Deep Sea version of the crew that just came out recently, but really both versions of the crew are both fantastic. So that does it for today's list of my holiday shopping guide for buying board games for either you or loved ones or the board gamers in your life. And hope you enjoyed. There are just a ton of games sitting here. All fantastic suggestions if you ask my opinion on it, obviously. But for all the different types of gamer in your life. I hope at least one or two of these sounded interesting to you. I hope you like the format of all the different genres of games that I went through, because it really provides something unique for everyone. Each one of these games are viable to have in your collection for different reasons, so take that for what you will. I hope you enjoyed. I think it was well worth it to kind of give you an idea of some fantastic games to buy for your loved ones for the holiday season. So, having said that, you all have a great day. Enjoy gaming, enjoy the holidays, and until next time, we'll see you later.